Fixing this one, and this one probably just...
That was beautiful. Oh, do you have a check there for hilarious?
We take the time for our cheese to mature before we bake it into every delicious cracker. Because at Cheez It, real cheese matters.
The most inspiring music from the 70s. WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key.
Tune in the second and fourth Thursday each month for Know Your Rights. I'm your host, Charles Cobble, and we will discuss your rights and have plenty of information on what those rights are. Every second and fourth Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on WQEE 99.1 FM.
Eager to enjoy the fun things in life? No matter where your road leads you, Charter Bank is here to make the journey a bit easier. With bank-free checking with online statements, we take care of the little things, like those pesky fees. You'll also have access to your account 24/7 with free online and mobile banking, plus over 55,000 surcharge-free ATMs worldwide. And a nice thank you gift, too, when you open your account. Take a moment and visit us online at charterbank.net or stop by one of our many convenient locations today. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Southern Fried Books, 29 Jackson Street, Newnan, downtown Noonan's only independent bookstore. And they offer a wide selection of bestsellers and award-winning books with adult, children's, and special interest titles to suit your fancy. Many of the hometown Novel Night authors have their books available in Southern Fried Book Local Authors section. Hometown Novel Night, bringing local authors and local audiences together south of Atlanta. And on Thursday, February 20th, 6:30 p.m., the 2020 slate of Hometown Novel Nights author events kicks off upstairs at the Newnan Carnegie Library in downtown Newnan. But let's not get ahead of ourselves this morning. We will share more details in just a few minutes. But first, his friends and family know him as Mike. However, he also goes by T.M. Brown, an award-winning local Southern author who proudly calls Coweta County home.
Hey, thank you, Ryan, and thank you to all the listeners of WQEE. Rock the key out there this morning. Newnan is experiencing a wonderful break in the weather today. Waiting for the sun to come out, but it looks like it's going to be another nice day in Newnan, and I'm so pleased to be here this morning. Before I introduce everyone to my special guest this morning, I'd like to get everyone a little bit up to date on some of the latest happenings that's been going on with Hometown Novel Nights, because it is continuing to be blessed by a lot of supporters in a lot of different ways. So let me kind of bring you up to date. Just this past month, we packed the house at Southern Fried Books for our kickoff event that featured Steve McConaughey, who is the owner and proprietor and our sponsor for what we're doing here. He at Southern Fried Books bookstore, and he's also the owner of SFK Multimedia Productions there here in Newnan as well. What Steve provided to all of those that were in attendance, we had a lot of authors and we had a lot of book lovers too, but Steve talked about what's going on in the publishing world coming into 2020, because this is one of those watershed moments in time for authors and books and publishing in general. And Steve gave some great insights about what's going on. George Weinstein, my good friend, who's the president of Atlanta Writers Club, was there. And he talked about networking and some of the great festivals and conferences that are coming up this year, including Newnan is having their Southern Lit Fest June 5th through 7th, and it's going to be hosted by the Newnan Carnegie Library Foundation. And it is sure to pack downtown Newnan in the first week in June. So that's something to look forward to. George also talked briefly about, because he's also a very successful author in his own right. His most recent book came out, Watch What You Say, came out in November, and it was one of the Southern Independent Bookseller Books of the Month. That was received very, very well, and I'm really pleased for George and the success of that novel. It's the fifth that he's put together, and I know he's busy already working on another. We also were entertained by the one and only Scott Ludwig. Scott did the MC thing. I stepped back and kind of listened more than anything else during this event, and Scott entertained us as the MC, and he will be doing similarly in future events for for the hometown Novel Nights coming up in February. And then we finished off talking about, Angie Gallion and I talked briefly about some new venues that are in store and some of the panelists that are coming up in the upcoming months. So that was a great event at Southern Fried Bookstore back on the 16th. And just last week we had our fourth Sunday at the Monarch House event, where we brought Tim Miller, who is a Fayette County high school teacher and also an author of 3 books, came and had a great time talking about his latest novel called The Leaves of Shamrock, an enduring love story. And then we had Martha Boone, who's a friend of mine from Atlanta Writers. She's an award-winning author, but she also, coincidentally, is one of the first female surgeons in urology that came out of New Orleans and now lives in Atlanta. And she wrote a book called The Big Free, which is kind of a quasi-biographical fiction story that describes the medical humor and drama in the life of one of the first women surgeons in the busiest trauma surgery program in New Orleans back in 1982. Martha kept us all enthralled with her stories, and I urge you to consider looking at that book. And, just speaking about that, looking ahead, coming up on the 4th Sunday this month, on February 23rd, which is the Sunday right after our main event at the Carnegie, we're going to be back at the Monarch House with a tandem. Alex and Angela McCrae are coming to entertain the folks and residents at the Monarch House, the guests, and all the family members that'll be there. So put that on your calendar, 2 o'clock on February 23rd, to come on out and enjoy a relaxed afternoon for about 90 minutes of book talk with Alex and Angela McCrae at the Monarch House. Also coming up in February, and it's been referred to at the beginning of the show, thanks to Ryan, but the Noonan Carnegie Library will once again help us to kick off as a year-long series of events. On Thursday, February 20th at 6:30, Southern Fried Books will be on hand as not only our sponsor, but also the official bookseller at the event. We're going to have Angela McCrae will be there. She's got her new book out, and it's called Emeralds and Envy, and it's the first of her Junkin Jewelry Mysteries. In fact, I'll be with her at Crime Fest in 2020 in Atlanta next month, where she's promoting her new book as well. I would also tell you that we're going to have David Coppage. Now, David's from Sonoya. Now, what is interesting about David is he's a retired federal law enforcement agent at the U.S. Customs and Federal Air Marshal Service. He's also now currently the head of corporate security at BlackRock Atlanta. So he's got a lot to draw on for his novels. And one of his most recent thrillers was called Barbaric Justice, and it kind of covers back to some of those events and that he's personally experienced, although he claims it is truly fiction. But he's also got a sense of humor about Southern life, and his most recent book is Sitting in Amen Corner, which is a heartwarming and poignant story of love, legacy, and Southern tradition and heritage. So you want to talk to David and get a chance to see David. Come on out on the Thursday night for that. Then I would tell you that the feature, I won't say the feature because I hate to say that, because I think all our authors are great, but here's a good friend is Christopher Swan. I've read his book. He's a distinguished Atlanta author who was both the Townsend Literary Prize and Georgia Author of the Year finalist with his 2018 breakout novel, Shadow of Lions. He's a literary thriller that's set in the elite and sometimes dark environs of Blackburn, a prep school in Virginia. And Christopher draws upon his own background in a private school setting, and he's also a teacher and an English major in all of this. So you will be enthralled by his story. He's already working on his next 2 books. The Borrower of the Night will be published a little bit later this year, and then he's got a third already slated for 2021. So with those 3 authors in mind, come on out February 20th at 6:30 to Carnegie Library. I think you'll all enjoy listening to their 3 stories for sure. And again, just one quick advance peek into what's coming up, because we are adding some new venue opportunities so you can get introduced to some of the many talented authors in the area. We've worked out an arrangement with the Warm Springs Cellars. It's a wonderful establishment in downtown Warm Springs, historic Warm Springs. And on March 7th, Hometown Novel Nights is teaming up with them to bring what's going to be called Wines Between the Lines. You can sip on your favorite wine or sip on your craft beer and sit back and listen to and have a conversation with Hometown Novel Night author there from about 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, March 7th, who happens to be me first. But every month we're going to be presenting different authors up there or down there, however your perspective is, to enjoy an easygoing time, possibly in the courtyards, weather permitting, there in Warm Springs. So we are expanding our horizons a little bit with Hometown Novel Nights, and we appreciate everything that y'all are doing. So, I would also like to take this time to pull back a moment, because I don't want to, soak up too much of this program time, because I have a special guest who, the timing for him to be here is very serendipitous, in that he's got his newest book coming out next month. And him and I, have been talking a lot about it. And he was with us back in the fall. When were you here, Tim? I want to say early in the fall.
Yeah, I can't even remember.
Yeah,
in the late
Tim
summer.
Riordan is the pastor of Sunrise Baptist Church here in Noonan. But he is also known to his Christian fiction fans as Judah Knight. But when he is speaking to authors and to the Christian community directly about some of the great books that he's written that deal with the Proverbs and the Book of Psalms, without going into all the titles off the top of my head, he's now come out with a book that is going to help writers of all forms. You don't have to be a Christian author to enjoy and benefit from what wisdom Tim has to offer, but he has a new book coming out that, him and I both agree on this. In his next book, the next bestseller, Book Marketing for Success, he opens up by saying, if you're going to be a successful writer, you must be a successful marketer. Well, that goes back to what Steve McConaughey said way back on January 16th about the changing tide in the publishing world. An author has to learn that writing the good book is only the first half of the journey. The hardest part of the journey is after that gets actually published, and you have to become that good marketer. So with that, I'd like to kind of introduce everybody again to Tim Riordan. Tim, tell me a little bit about what's been going on with you since we last spoke, and then we'll get into talking about your book.
Well, I've been writing a lot. Of course, I love to write. I committed years ago to the discipline of writing at least an hour a day, and it's actually through that I became an author. When I was a kid, I set a goal of writing at least 10 books, but life got busy, and it's kind of difficult to raise 6 kids and pastor a church and all the other things that I do with my life. Somehow I just never began to write, because I saw writing as this massive book, as a finished project. When I finally realized that writing is really a compilation of writing sentences and paragraphs, and if I could devote myself to an hour a day, I could eventually become a published author. And that's what I did. But it was through my journey of working with publishers, talking with consultants, dealing with agents, and that whole process, which is mind-boggling as you go through that whole journey, that I discovered that even though signing with a publisher, no matter how prominent, you're still basically responsible to do all your marketing. Mm-hmm. They may do a little piece of it, but it's really up to you. And I did not know that when I first began. I thought way back when that you just wrote a book and you're done, and then you start writing the next one. And I kind of learned through the journey of Hard Knocks that it's not that way at all. That if your book is going to be a success, no matter how good it is, no one even knows it's out there unless you market the thing. And so I began the journey of really trying to learn how to market, which was quite challenging years ago when I first started this.
I can remember, remind me, who was the lead speaker at the conference that you had?
Shelley Hitz.
Shelley, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that just before Sanctuary, my first book came out, I was out wandering through the dark, trying to find my way, and not just writing the story, but what do you do with it once it's written. And I remember going to the conference that you held at the church there, and meeting Shelley and listening to what she had to say, and the advice that she offered. And that's when I started to realize there's more to this than just writing your story. It does involve a lot of effort in the marketing aspect of it. And now that it's 3 years removed since I've launched Sanctuary, I can look back and say, yep, you're right. Inspiration is part of the battle, but perspiration is 90% of the battle. And I'm talking about perspiration not just in the writing aspect of it, but also all of the marketing effort.
I tell people all the time that the time to start marketing your book is before you write it. I wish I'd known that when I first started. I would have done things quite differently. It took a little while for my early books to gain traction. Thankfully, they were able to do that. I was able to win some awards and do some other things, but it was kind of the process of trial and error, to figure it all out, to learn it. So now I have a passion to help authors be successful, and I have the privilege of speaking to some author groups from time to time. And this whole thing of marketing keeps coming up, and for me, it's been a journey to learn how to do it. And I can't say that I've mastered it. I'm still learning and trying to apply a lot of these things myself. And so I find that when authors say to me, I want to publish a book, I've written a book, I want to get it out, or if I'm consulting with someone, I'm constantly going back to having to help authors learn how to market. And so I finally, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I began putting this book together on how to market. Of course, the whole thing keeps changing because technology and the rules change, and so I've had to go back and modify and rewrite and add to it. But I'm excited to finally get it out. It's actually coming out March 10th.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, March 10th, so that's not very far away. Tell us a little bit, who is your target audience in this, and then where are they going to be able to get your book?
Well, my target audience would obviously be authors, specifically anyone who's ever said, I sure would like to write a book. I think a great place to start, even as you're writing or before you're writing, is to think of the whole picture, which includes how are you going to get your message out there, how are you going to build your platform. And so I would encourage anyone who aspires to write to read my book or pick up a book on marketing and learn how to do it or learn what's all involved. So many people want to write a book. Well, you want to do more than write a book. You want your book to be a success. And so you need to figure all that out on the front end and begin creating your strategy so that you can get the message out about your book. So I would say anyone who aspires to write, the book does go into a lot of detail. There's some stuff, if you've been an author for a long time, there's some things in there that I think will kind of guide you on the journey no matter how experienced you are. I'll offer a few things in there. I've got a couple of chapters on how to launch your book. I have a resource on like a job description for your book launch team. I have some things on how to pick a website host, and just kind of some extra little tidbits and resources thrown in. So I would say any author or anyone who aspires to be an author, it sounds really glamorous to write a book. I would encourage you, if you want to write a book, think of the whole picture and think about what's involved in marketing.
Well, it sounds like to me, and I'm just taking the opportunity and we'll catch you off guard, but it sounds like to me that right after this book gets launched, we should be starting to think about a possible weekend workshop where you can kind of highlight some of those key things. And you don't have to be a Christian author, to take the advice that comes from somebody like Tim. That I can honestly tell you. And the way he's written his story, his testimony comes out in the story, in his advice. But the core ingredients of what he's saying and sharing for writers is true of whoever you are, in whatever walk of life you are. If you want to be a successful author, there are some values that you need to be aware of in the process, and there's certainly some steps, and it don't matter. There's some steps that we all wear the same shoes, walking up the same set of steps.
That's exactly. The average author sells 250 books or less.
Right.
That's amazing. 250 books or less. It doesn't have to be that way. Of course, obviously you got to write a good book. But the reason most authors sell so few books is because they don't know how to market. And so it's really crucial, no matter what your message is. We've all got a message of some kind. No matter what your message is, you got to figure this marketing piece out.
Yeah, well, so I'll go back and say, I'm going to throw that out there, and it's
I think it'd be great.
It's a low-hanging fruit for my friend Tim to grab. to, maybe it's something we can do and talk to some of the, the hometown novel night authors are out there. Every event that we have, particularly those at the Carnegie, I get somebody that'll come out of the audience and say, I've got a book I want to write.
Mm-hmm.
When are you going to have a workshop to help me in that process?
Yep.
And and it's something that I haven't, that none of us, Angie or Scott or myself, have given a lot of thought to, other than to say, yeah, that'd be a great idea. And I know Steve McConaughey, if he's listening to this morning, or when he does hear this, he's going to say, yeah, well, we could do something there at Southern Fried Books, because I know he wants to do some of that kind of stuff to help writers to not only have a great idea to write about and do it well, but to get the message out.
Right.
And so let's talk more about maybe in the future putting together a workshop that we could start to promote and get some, because if you really are somebody out there that has a story or a topic on your mind that needs to be written about, that you really feel committed to, there is a lot of resources out there if you're willing to go digging for it to help you get your message out. So I would encourage you. I mean, the book is called The Next Bestseller, Book Marketing for Success. Tim, where would folks be able to get the book when it comes out?
You can find information out about, well, one thing, I have a website called thenextbestsellerbook.com. You can go to my website, timriordan.com. My last name is spelled Riordan, timriordan.com. You can find information about all of my nonfiction books there. It's right now you can pre-order it on Amazon. You can get a digital pre-order for 99 cents. I'm actually running a discount on that until it comes out. And so, but that's just on Amazon as a digital. There'll be paperbacks coming out on the 10th. You'll be able to get it through any retailer where you normally shop. But you can find out more information. thenextbestsellerbook.com is probably the best place. I'm going to be writing about it on my personal website as well.
Well, being as Tim is also one of the Hometown Novel Night authors, so we will probably be posting, I think there's a post right now sitting on our Facebook page at Hometown Novel Nights that is connected to, your promotion and the release of his next book. So certainly you can go there too from that side of it, and you can always, go to my own Facebook page, and you'll probably see some links to Tim's books as well. And I highly recommend that. And if you have some suggestions for Tim about an interest in doing a workshop, the best way to make that happen is to send him a message. And I know we can make that happen.
That'd be great. Love to do it.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm so pleased that Tim has been here this morning. I personally have benefited from knowing Tim now for, good golly, it's been 4 or 5 years. Been blessed by his inspiration, his story, to know that he's a full-time pastor and does all this writing, and here I am retired grumbling with all the time in the world. So yes, I'm so pleased that you're here today. Is there any final words of wisdom you'd like to share, Tim, as we're closing up today?
Well, I would just say that everybody's got a message, and I think that your message can impact people's lives. And so I always challenge not only writers but people. I think that we're put on this earth for a reason, for a purpose, and so we need to go fulfill our purpose, go accomplish our mission. I tell writers, go change the world. Go make an impact. Write your story, share your message, put it out there. You never know whose life is going to be touched by it.
Amen. I think that's I think that's some great pearls of wisdom right there for sure. Well, before we wrap up, I'd like to give a loud shout out to our sponsor, Southern Fried Books at 29 Jackson Street in here in Noonan, just 2 blocks away from where we're broadcasting this morning. Please stop in, peruse through all the latest bestsellers and local interest books on their shelves, which continue to grow every time I pop in there. I'm so pleased to see how the community is responding to the fact that Southern Fried Books has opened up here in town. And if you read a really compelling new book, please drop me a line about the title and author. Tell me why you liked it. I just might quote you in a future broadcast here. You can simply email me at mike@tmbrownauthor.com. That's mike@tmbrownauthor.com. Or you can bug Ryan, and Ryan can pass it on to me. But we'll be sure I'll be taking a look at the different suggestions, and we will be adding, some of the local comments on what books are really, making you guys stop and think. And if you'd like to know more about Hometown Novel Nights and all of our future author panels and new special events planned in the coming months, you got on Facebook at WGA Hometown Novel Nights, on Instagram at Hometown Novel Night, or you can visit tmbrownauthor.com and locate the Hometown Novel Nights tab there, and it'll take you to get you in touch with what we've got going on. And book clubs, why not get introduced to some of the talented Georgia authors that are in our area? You may wish to invite one of them to your future book club meetings as well. On behalf of the growing Hometown Novel Nights family of authors, Ryan and the WQEE Rock the Key audience, and of course our sponsor, Southern Fried Books, thank you. Which reminds me, when you visit Southern Fried Books, please tell them that I sent you. God bless, and see you next month.
For those who would like to find out more about the future schedule of Hometown Novel Night events, visit Hometown Novel Nights on Facebook or visit Mike's author page at tmbrownauthor.com. And there is a page dedicated to Hometown Novel Nights there as well. You can also visit at Southern Fried Books on Facebook, or better yet, stop in and visit their store at 29 Jackson Street in downtown Noonan. This has been the Hometown Novel Nights radio show, hosted by T.M. Brown. See you next time.